Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the case may be. This is Mike Dell's World number 391 for November 4th, 2023, Napod Pomo 23. Okay, wow, that gets longer and longer each time. So today I just got off of a live stream / podcast recording with Adam Curry, the Podfather, and Dave Jones, the Pod Sage, and Todd Cochran, the podcast curmudgeon. I guess we'll name him that. Anyway, the four of us had a really good discussion on what was going on in the podcasting world and some other things with Podcast 2.0, which if you're not familiar with it, go over to podcastindex.org and check it out. It aims to completely keep podcasting free and open rather than closed and censored and all that other good stuff. You've heard me talk about that before. But what I want to talk to you about today is what podcast app are you listening to hear this show? And I really do want to know. Please shoot a quick email, mike@mikedell.com, put app in the subject line, and tell me what app or apps you use to listen to this show. I'm going to guess that those of you who reply, it's going to be a higher number of people not using the default app on their phone. And really with Android, there isn't a default app. I guess Google Podcast for the time being is that. But I really do want to know. So please, if you do nothing else, just type app in the subject line and shoot me an email. Tell me what app you're using to listen. I can look at my stats and kind of tell too, but I want to hear from you guys. So mike@mikedell.com. mike@mikedell.com. All right. So here's the deal. There's 3 different categories of podcast listening apps. Well, 4. Let's do 4. And I'll categorize these by in rank order, worst to best. The worst is something like Pandora, iHeart, Spotify, soon to be YouTube. And, apps like that where that app is not focused on podcasting. Amazon's another one. Now, there's nothing wrong. I don't care where you listen, to be honest with you. But I think you're getting a bad experience using those particular apps, in my humble opinion, or maybe not so humble. The second tier apps, I would say, or second tier way of listening to podcasts is just on a web page. Again, nothing wrong with that. I do it myself sometimes. But just listening on a web page on your computer or even your phone, you don't see that as much, but somebody listening on the desktop. What if you're sitting there? And that's probably a good way to go. And then there's what I call legacy apps. And I don't count Spotify as a legacy app because they're really a music app. But the legacy apps like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts until they close it, Overcast to a certain extent, although I love Overcast. Marco, please do some new stuff. But anyway, I do love Overcast, and a lot of you guys use that one. But that's a legacy app. It doesn't have any of the new Podcast 2.0 features in it yet. It does have a lot of other cool features like the smart playlists. But again, that's what I consider an app that's further down. It's second tier, a legacy app, something that it's okay, nothing wrong with it. And I guess a subsection of that is of the web version of it is PWA type apps. And I believe that that's probably the way a lot of apps are going to go. So But the top tier apps in my world now is the Podcasting 2.0 compliant apps. And there is just a literal crap ton of apps on this page, newpodcastapps.com. And then if you filter it to just apps, it'll show you all the different listening apps. And that's what I'm getting at. So Podfans, that one's a PWA/web-based player. They're really good, and they have the most features of any of the apps. One that I just discovered today that, I didn't know they had an iOS version, but they do have an Android version, and they do now have an iOS version. So I'm using Podcast Guru. I just downloaded it. I played with the settings, and it can do what I want to do other than the smart playlists that I love in Overcast, but I think I found a way around that with tags. But there's one called PeerTube, Podverse. I use Podverse a lot as well. Fountain I also use. Podfriend. That one is a whole bunch of things. It's apps, native apps, and a PWA, and a web interface. LN Beats, Podcast Addict, which is kind of a legacy app, but they've upped their game and now have a lot of the Podcast 2.0 features in it. So if you're on an Android phone, look up Podcast Addict if you don't like Podverse, Fountain, or Guru. SplitKit, I guess that's I don't know, that might be a listening app. But there's a whole bunch of them. Just, flip through some of these and give it a try. Try it on my show. Or try it on, some of the other Napod Pomo shows. It's powered by the Podcast Index. That's where they get their podcasts from instead of from Apple. And, there's nothing particularly wrong with Apple. I do actually enjoy their app as well. I don't use it a lot only because, I use it for work-related stuff because, I have to know how it works. But, it's a legacy app. Podcasting's been around 19 years. It's not a new concept anymore. And the next generation of podcast apps are found over at podcastapps.com. So anyway, I really, really, really would love you to try one of those apps and, sign up for an Albi wallet for Bitcoin. Cost you $30 to throw, a few Satoshis in there, and then you can, reward the people you listen to. It's really a cool way to do it. What did I do with Saturn? Oh, I must have closed it. Otherwise, you'd hear boosts coming in from my appearance on Podcasting 2.0 show. But anyway, it's just something that I want everybody to look at and, decide. Do you want to be beholden to these big tech companies that are really just out there to sell your data and, throw ads at you? Now there's nothing particularly wrong with ads either. Some podcasts, that's how they keep the lights on, and, you should support them as well. But this value for value thing, I think, is going to be really good for us independent podcasters. And maybe if you listen to that show we did, a really good idea came up for the advertising piece. So that should be fun. But yeah, I just wanted to debrief, decompress from my appearance on that show and say, hey, try a new podcast app today or tomorrow, over the weekend, whatever. I'll be back tomorrow. Everybody have a good weekend.